money isn't real. Might sound like a strange statement, right? I mean, it isn't anything tangible. It's just some abstraction, pieces of paper, numbers on a screen that represent the potential for something tangible, something real that actually you can touch and you can do something with, you can eat, you can talk to. Ooh, ownership of people, slavery, edgy topic. Anyway, the point is, it just represents the potential for something. It is but pure fantasy as a concept, as an abstract thing that in some way relates from our minds and the way we conceive of it to the world. So, being as it is just pure fantasy, why not spend some Skrilla, some of that money, and play an Alpha Draft, where you can win money using the potential for you to pick good players and what they might be able to do in a match, and get yourself some money, fantasy money, but then again, you can trade for goods, services, and apparently people. I mean, it seems kind of old-fashioned, but some parts of the world you still can in some ways. So, Alpha Draft. Now, JDM64, the primary AWPer for CLG, Counter Logic Gaming, is clearly one of the best North American players right now. But I wanted to assess his overall skill set, where he stands as a player, because I feel like in the games he does really well. People sometimes overrate him, and it's hard to kind of figure out where do you put him in the hierarchy, because people like Skadoodle have done more internationally in the past to mean that they automatically get that status, and it's sometimes hard for someone like JDM to overtake them because they haven't been perceived as being better yet. Even though obviously there's been periods of time where JDM, especially towards the end of last year, was better than Skadoodle as an AWPer. Now, as an overall player, he seems pretty solid to me. Like, he's been decent under pressure at international lands. Hasn't been great. He's had good games. He's had times when he's very good. He's also had times when he's wilted a bit, when he's just been average, and he hasn't had that big an impact. He's been decent overall. I don't think he's bad in any way. He was, if we look at his history, he was good or slightly above average as an NA top player in terms of impact leading up to like ESL1 Cologne last year. He was like doing good. He was having good maps. He was having consistent maps. He wasn't breaking out and being crazy though, and being some like top international player on all respects. He had that game against Navi, ESL1 Cologne on Cobble, where he went crazy. But aside from that, nothing too nuts, just consistent play. Then he started really breaking out domestically. He started bodying smaller tournaments. He went ham at that win-out tournament that was all NA teams and I think Luminosity, the old Luminosity. Then there was the qualifier, DreamHack Stockholm, that he went nuts at. He was very good there. Then he went to DreamHack Cluj, and he was decent, top 11 national player, and he was good at times. He wasn't some breakout AZ type player, though. San Jose, he was reasonably poor at, actually, and underperformed quite a lot there. Northern Arena, another domestic competition, he bodied that completely. In terms of NA teams, he's become very good. He's one of the best NA players, certainly, if not the best. Although that's the part that's debatable that we'll get to. Internationally, he's still been having some issues and he's gradually getting through them. ESL, ESEA Pro League Season 2 finals, he's very average at. At Game Show, I have to say, this is where I'm going to be different from other people. I think overall, his performance was actually underwhelming at Game Show. What I mean is, he started off so hot. In the series against Envious, who went on to win the tournament, he was going fucking ham. But then as the tournament went on, he just became good, and then he actually cooled off like a motherfucker towards the end. I mean, the elimination map that they had against Astralis in the third place decider, on DOS 2, great AWPing map, right? He went 3-18 in kills to deaths. It's a terrible game, really poor for someone who we're trying to put as not just one of the best NA players, but a top legit international star. So there's still a gap there between the top international players and this guy. Now, in terms of his role within CLG, I'll tell you right now, he straight up carries CLG. He is the best player by far in CLG and the only starter to turn up with any consistency, especially since Kotler became the in-game leader. Before that, I used to think Kotler was their best player when they had PTR, and then even when JDM initially joined, Kotler was still the most consistent player, the best output. But since Kotler went to in-game leader, a lot of that dropped off. He had a lot of issues. Now, obviously, Kotler isn't the in-game leader. They're using Peter for that. But JDM has been getting progressively better throughout CLG, and now he's certainly the carry. For me, someone like Tarek can't even be compared to JDM64 as a carry, because Tarek's almost like a spectator of JDM. It's like he's almost paid for like front row seats to the fucking JDM show, because he's not doing anything against international competition. Meanwhile, versus NA teams, yeah, Tarek beats the fuck out of them. Him and JDM are a super strong pairing that can just dominate all these teams. But you get to international competition, it's all on JDM's shoulders. And that's unfair, by the way. Now, one thing I have to say that no one brings up, it seems, with this guy. He is god-awful with the rifles. Like his M4A4, M4A1, AK are fucking terrible. I mean, he has some really, really bad stats with them. I went and I did a list of things. I'll see if I can add it in now. I should be able to, actually. Let me see where I put it. 1 sec. Okay. Right, I'm just going to find it now because I've got a graphic for you. I know I rarely ever actually do graphics. I don't do any like complicated shit, but I think I've got a graphic for you I can put up now. Let's see. Okay, here you go. There we go. Right, now I just have to edit that. So now I'll put it so that you can see it. Okay, so for the moment, we're just going to put this here so we can talk about it. Okay. So what this graphic is I went on HLTV.org and I picked LAN, and then I got all the stats. And what I calculated was this number on the left is the number of rifle kills that a player has on LAN, and the number on the right is the number of AWP kills that he has on LAN. And then I did a ratio. And so what I've done is I've gotten a load of people who use the AWP here. And so what we can see here is that JDM is not just that because he's a primary AWPer, somebody gets the AWP every time he can, that he's bad with the rifles because he's a primary AWPer. Because obviously the majority of the really godlike AWPers are better with the AWP than the rifles, and they're not getting the rifle most of the time, and they're not that good with the rifles. But you will see he has by far the worst ratio of AWP kills to rifle kills. So first of all, we'll split this in two, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to make the list. There's what? Let's see, there's 4, 6, 8, 10. So there's 10 people on this list. The first 6 people we're going to call the primary AWPers. And so we're going to go JDM, Nico, who's now retired, but I just plays for a shit team, formerly of Dignitas and Western Wolves. We're going to have JDM, Nico, Fallen, Guardian, Kenny S, Skadoodle. These are guys where you want the AWP in their hands. For the most of their careers, they have the AWP in their hands. They're primary AWPers, and that's what's going to happen. So those guys, we're going to split off here. We're going to consider that group 1. Group 2 is the hybrid AWPers. So that's going to be Simple, Device, KGB, Olofmeister. These are people who are either equally good with the rifles as the AWP or better with rifles. That's why their ratio goes the other way. So let's just look, first of all, among the primary AWPers, the first 6 names on my list. So JDM, in terms of, obviously, this is the reason why I did the ratio, because obviously some of these players have had a lot more. Like obviously Kenny S has 3,400 kills. He's played way more games than JDM. But the point is, you think of Guardian. Guardian doesn't have godlike rifles. He has pretty good rifles, one of the best rifles for an AWPer here. Skadoodle famously doesn't have amazing rifles. We think of him as like a reasonably bad rifle player for an AWPer. But Skadoodle's ratio is fantastic compared to JDM. JDM has over 6 kills with a AWP for every 1 he has with a rifle. Nico, a player who was considered to have terrible rifles in the latter days and was only getting by in his AWP and was playing like shit, he has 4 AWP kills for every 1. So he's even got a better ratio. Then you go and you look at Fallen's better. Guardian's obviously much better, way more kills there. Guardian and Kenny S, a lot of kills there. But surprisingly, Skadoodle, quite a good ratio. Admittedly, for someone like him, I'd take Guardian Kenny S over them because the reason why they're getting more AWP kills, they're also better AWPers. But Skadoodle, pretty reasonable, pretty respectable number of rifle kills. JDM's terrible. This is not made up, by the way. I went to HLTV.org and I checked this stat. JDM, in his career on LAN, of tournaments that are counted on HLTV.org's database, including all those NA LANs that he's played in 2015, has only gotten 157 confirmed LAN kills with an AK M4, one of those guns, an AK or an M4. He's only had 157 kills ever in all those tournaments and maps he played. So he's actually god awful with the rifles. One of the worst top star level primary AWPers in the entire world with that. Then you go to the hybrids. So first of all, a very interesting guy that people don't talk about is Simple here, because Simple is almost equally good with the AWP and the rifle. Now I always say Device and Olofmeister are amazing to me because they're so good with the rifles. They're the best in the world with the rifles, but they're also very good with the AWP. Simple's like equally amazing with both. So we definitely want to see how his career progresses because that's incredible. The other 3 are really the hybrids. Simple's the most pure hybrid, but these are the normal hybrids where really a hybrid tends to be a really good rifler who can also AWP. So you think of Device, KGB, Olofmeister. The thing with these guys is they get more rifle kills than AWP kills, but Device might surprise you because actually he's getting like an AWP kill for less than every 3 rifle kills. KGB, a bit less often because he AWPs in specific maps like Dust 2. And Olofmeister AWPing a lot less, still fantastic with the AWP though, and it's in the key situations. You know, there's the right map or the right half that he's going to pick it on. But you can see how it breaks down there. So I'll take this image away now. So you can see the whole point of that, obviously, is to show you that, yeah, he's not just terrible with the rifles because he's an AWPer, he's unusually bad compared to other players who even do that role. So I want to kind of contrast it to you. Also, what's interesting is, when I went and looked at his other stats for weapons, he has 84 kills with an AK, and he has 74 with the M4s combined. 73 rather. Well, he has 73 kills with all of the M4s combined, and yet he has 63 kills with a 5.7. He has 50 kills with a Glock. He has 45 kills with a Tech 9. He has 46 kills with a FAMAS. So what you're seeing here is, this is a guy where he's AWPing every chance he gets, more so even than those players, because he's not good with the rifles at all. He's almost never going to rifles if he can get away with it. Instead, he's buying 5.7, he's buying Tech 9, he's going to the pistols and armor, he's going to FAMAS and armor, he's either going glass cannon AWP, or he's going pistol and FAMAS, which tells you that even he knows he's not good with rifles. Now, that's really bad, because the fundamental of the game of CS will always be around, to some degree, rifle play anyway. Even if you have someone to drop you an AWP, Kenny S in Titan style, even if you're going to AWP the majority of the time, unless you're in the best team in the world, you're not going to have an AWP enough to be able to take over the game entirely and be the best player in the world. You're not going to be able to do it if you don't have some level of rifle game, which at the moment he doesn't have. Now, even if he gets those carries from his team, that's having a massive tax on them, because they have to get him an AWP. Never mind that. They can't weigh up on this round whether they should. He can't do anything without the AWP. And so as a result, even though he carries a lot, so it's worth giving him it, because he's the best player in the team by far, he's also having a massive drain on the team. You have to set him up in that way, and it makes you a bit obvious. So as a result, that's a flaw. As good as he is with the AWP, it makes him one-dimensional because of the fact he only has this AWPing aspect to his game. So as good as he is, it's limiting. It also provides problems in terms of him carrying the game. Because if he wants to be a consistent threat and to consistently every half and every map have a big impact and give his team a chance to win, especially against international competition, it's not going to work if you can be easily neutralized. I mean, if you just limit the economy of CLG, you are instantly limiting and neutralizing JDM64. If you're an Envious style team, you're a Fnatic style team, you fuck with them, you force buy, you do lots of attacks, you bomb rush his position, you get the AWPs out of his hand, and you make sure his teammates don't have 4750 in the bank, you've just neutralized him immediately. He's going to be on a FAMAS, he's going to be on, well, he's not going to be on glass cannon because he won't have money there, but he's going to be on FAMAS, he's going to be on 5.7. You've immediately neutralized their biggest threats. That's going to be a problem for CLG when you're trying to play the game. The analogy I'd give for JDM is in basketball, one of the most dominant positions historically is the center, the big guy in the middle closest to the basket. Because if he gets his shots off and he's very good, he's getting very close to the basket and his shots are going to be high percentage. He's going to be able to make a lot of two-point shots with like 60, 70% depending on how good he is. Accuracy. Now the problem is, JDM isn't like Shaquille O'Neal or Wilt Chamberlain, some all-time god center, but he's like a good center. He's like above average in terms of just like only center moves and post moves. We can imagine he's like a good player who's like a potential, he's coming into being an all-star, or he's just on the brink of that. But the analogy is, imagine he's like that with a good skill set, but he doesn't have any free throws. He's terrible at doing free throws. So when someone fouls you and you have to go and you shoot the 2 free throws, he's terrible. He's like 50%, he's 55%. So actually, what do you do in the game of basketball? You purposely foul that guy towards the end of the game so that he, instead of taking the 2-point shot that he might hit with 70% accuracy, he's taking 2 free throws that he hits with 55% accuracy. And as a result, you're going to win off that. He's not going to make as many points. You can limit and contain him, and under pressure even, he might miss all the free throws, and therefore you win the game outright. As soon as someone can do that to you, you're never going to dominate the game in the same way as star player. Like Olaf Meister and Kenny S, you can't stop them. You can't stop these guys. Guardian, if he gets to a deagle, if he gets to anything, he's going to fuck you up. You can't stop these guys and limit them in the same sense. They have to stop themselves to a degree. You can just do the best you can to contain them and give them a chance to stop themselves. You can stop JDM. This is the problem. Also, the big issue I have here is that, to keep the analogy going for the NBA, when you have that sort of a player, what you do is you want to avoid the fact that he's going to get fouled. So what you do is, unless he can go for a clear move, you surround him with shooters, outside perimeter players, so he can kick the ball out, they shoot the shot, and then if people double team him, then he shoots the ball out, they have an open shot, that's how you get your points. Well, the analogy here would be to have more firepower around JDM, and that's what CLG doesn't have. CLG's problem is, first and foremost, Taric. Taric needs to be either a star player or as good as JDM64 to make up for JDM's deficiency with rifles and inability to consistently carry every half, every map, every game. Taric isn't doing that so far. If you had Taric and JDM, or someone of the skill level of Taric who was carrying as well, 2 stars, then I think that CLG would then be able to be like a top 8 team in the world, and they could be consistently around that level, and occasionally maybe they'd make a miracle semi-final or something. Don't count Game Show, because there was no Na'Vi, there was no fucking Luminosity, there was no Fnatic there, so be reasonable. My point is that at the massive stack tournaments, they could maybe make like a semi. They could be at that level, because they'd have the 2 stars of firepower, and then we could just rely on those 2, like Kenny S, Apex Star. Maybe they could make it like Titan used to. In an ideal world, because of his deficiency with the rifles, JDM would actually be a 3rd star. If you had 2 really good players, maybe 2, like an amazing Maybe you had like an amazing lurker who's really good at clutches, and you have a really sick player who's a very strong fragger. If you had those two players, and then you have JDM64, the pressure's off him to have to carry every game. He can pick his moments like this. He can have times where he doesn't have a weapon in his hand. He's not going to get as many AWPs, but then he could be the third star, and then you would be like one of the best teams in the world. Then you could be like a top 5 team in the world. Problem is, you see how that's not the setup right now in CLG. So in terms of his skill set, he's good. As an AWPer, he's good at all ranges. He's very good at medium range. If you get him into that medium range there, his hit rate is very, very good, and he sets his shots up well. He loves to double scope at medium range, which is actually reasonably not as common if you see how much other AWPers do it. That's usually where they want a single scope, so they have the bigger vision, and it's a shorter distance to move. He likes the double scope because he's going to be right on his spots. He's someone who, he wants to set up his angle. Like if he's a CT especially, he wants to set up the angle, and on T-side actually, so that you have to walk into it. And when you walk into it, he's only going to have to make a small movement. And he's going to be consistent with that small movement. He's going to get the kills. And as a result, he's got a really good hit rate of like, let's say like we made a difficulty scale of shots. So 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10. All the shots that are up to a 7 out of 10, he hits in a really good consistency. Now the harder shots, he hits them a bit some of the time, but he's not going to make as many crazy flicks. And his game's more around setting up the angle and then smaller movements there. He's a guy where one problem I actually do see with his game is on CT side, he moves around too much. Like he won't hold an angle for long enough. On T side, he's very disciplined. He'll take the angle, he'll wait for someone to make the play, then he'll move in with his team and take a specific shot. And everywhere he moves, he's not moving and then looking, he's moving onto an angle. Then he's moving onto another angle, he's moving onto another angle. It's very robotic, and the way he fires is quite robotic. That's what's so consistent about it. It's so smooth and it's so fluid, and that's what I really like about it. And as a result, he doesn't look like he fires super fast, but his firing speed is like consistently fast. It's the same speed each time, and it can be quite quick, even though it's not like that crazy flick style of like a Cajun B or something. So he's a guy where I think he moves around a bit too much to CT. Like he looks a bit ADD, like he's constantly switching up his spot and he doesn't want to stay on this angle and he moves here. That sometimes gets him killed, that sometimes gets him out of position. I think he should be a bit more static sometimes, Skadoodle or Guardian style. He's good, but not godlike at tracking. Like if he's out in the open and he spots a guy over this side of the screen and he has to quickly track onto him and then hit the shot, because of his slower, more fluid style, he has a decent hit rate, but he's not a god at that. He doesn't do the crazy flicks across the whole screen and hit them and instantly frag them like KDS style or Guardian style. He's not that kind of a party piece type shot guy, but he is a good player. So I think he's certainly one of the best NA players. Like if I had to pick the best NA players right now, I think at the moment it's actually between him and Nitro. I think those are the two where I'd put them down as the best NA player right now. In terms of top international players, because of his deficiency with the rifles, I can't put him in the top 10 right now. I don't think he warrants that spot. Is he a top 20 player in the world? Yeah, probably. I think I'll be reasonable. Whereabouts in the top 20, we really have to talk more about that. I mean, for a start, I need to see him do better at majors. I need to see him do a bit better at European competitions and start to close games out and be a bit more clutch in that sense. But he's improving. He's one of the best NA players. He's one of the best players in the world overall when we're talking like top 20, top 30. And I think he's a good player. But he has certain key deficiencies which I think are important because of how they relate to CLG. Like I feel sorry for the guy in some ways, not in terms of having shit rifles, that's his own fault and his own skill set, but in terms of being so relied upon and having to put everyone in the fucking backpack and carry him. They rely on him too much there. He doesn't have enough help. So hopefully in the future that's something they can fix.